This video is going to uncover and show you what CNN is never going to show you, what MSNBC is never going to tell you, what NPR will never touch. A dark secret that's crucial for you to know. It's behind everything that's happening now, shaking our colleges, our culture, our world. Stay tuned to the end so you don't miss what is going to be opened up. And I promise you, they will never tell you this. They'll keep hidden what they know. And we're going to open up what they don't know, the other realm that's behind it all. This is Jonathan Cahn. And first, three things. Number one, if you're not already getting this, to not miss the prophetic messages that I'm going to post here, hit subscribe. Number two, send this video to those in your life who need to see it and know it. Number three, update. The third manuscript draft of the Dragon's Prophecy, Israel, the Dark Resurrection, and the End of the Age is just about finished. About 120 days from this posting, it will be released, the Dragon's Prophecy. To be the first to get it, just go to Amazon or wherever you get books, and you can secure your copy. All right, what is going on? What's going on is not stopping. These are prophetic days. In just the past few weeks, we almost saw a major war begin, what could have been a world war. And for the first time, we saw Iran attack Israel directly with over 300 missiles and drones. And now, as we post this, something many never thought they would ever see. America has been exploding with hatred against Israel for the first time ever. It's exploding on college campuses all over the nation. In Columbia, here in New York, in the Ivy League, Harvard, Yale, in the University of Southern California, in the University of Texas, in George Washington University, in the Capitol, where they draped the statue of George Washington with a Palestinian flag, all over the nation. A wave of anti-Israel and anti-Semitic rage. In Columbia University, the protesters announced, "Zionists have entered the camp. We don't want no Zionists here." Throughout the universities of America, they've chanted, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." What does that mean? From the river to the sea is where Israeli citizens live. That's Israel. It means they want every Jewish person in Israel to be eliminated from the land or dead. Others chanted, "From the river to the sea, Palestine is Arab." It'd be like people shouting, "From California to Boston, America is white." And the colleges have had little problem with it. See, protesters have chanted to bomb Tel Aviv. Others chanted, "We are Hamas." Others chanted, "Hamas, make us proud, kill another soldier now." And the colleges didn't do much. The University of Southern California, the protesters found Jewish students wearing Jewish symbols. They ripped them off of them. At the Ivy League Yale University, pro-Hamas students attacked Jewish students. In one campus, they shouted, "Long live Hamas, death to the Jews." And what did the universities do? Not much. And mostly, they did something only when they were exposed for not doing anything. Imagine if the protesters had shouted death to other groups. Now, listen to this one. In one campus, the protesters shouted, "Never forget the 7th of October." Sounds good, as like a reminder of the atrocities Hamas committed on the Israelis. But that wasn't what they were saying. They said, "Never forget the 7th of October. It will happen 10,000 more times. The 7th of October will be every day for you." Talking to Jewish students. College students across America celebrated and cheered for Hamas and for the slaughter of innocent Israeli citizens on October 7th. And what did the universities do? Not much. One demonstrator had a sign with a Palestinian flag and the words "final solution," referring to Hitler's final solution of annihilating the Jews in the Holocaust. This is not your grandparents' peace rally of the 1960s. This is something else, another animal altogether, much darker. The leader of the anti-Israel demonstrations at Columbia was questioned by the faculty about what he said about Zionists. Now first, who are Zionists? Zionism simply means, or a Zionist, that you are for the return of the Jewish people to Zion or Israel. They have the right to do that, and for Israel to exist. That makes every prophet of the Bible a Zionist. That makes the Apostle Paul a Zionist. That makes the 12 disciples Zionists. That makes the Virgin Mary a Zionist. That makes Jesus, Yeshua, the Messiah, a Zionist. That makes God a Zionist. Well, they questioned him about Zionism, Zionist. And you know what he said? He said, Zionists quote, do not deserve to live. And if he could kill them, he would. He didn't have any immediate plans to do so, but he believed they should all be dead. And what did the faculty who questioned him do? They asked him, and I quote, what resources do you feel are available to you here at Columbia? What resources do you feel are available? It's like Adolf Hitler shows up on campus and says, I want to kill all the Jews. And the faculty asked him, Adolf, what resources do you feel are available for you here at Columbia? Well, I'd like some resources of some gas chambers and some Zyklon tablets, some cyanide gas that we can gas all the Jews. Now, can you imagine if somebody at Columbia or almost any of the universities said, liberals don't deserve to live, or LGBT people, or women, or black or Latino, you fill in the blank. How many minutes do you think it would take them to expel that person? In fact, if someone said that they couldn't even call a transgender biological male a woman, just that, do you know what would have happened? They would have been punished. And if they refused to change, they would be banned from that college. But this one says that Zionists, fill in Jews for that, don't deserve to live. And do they ban him? No, they ask him if he feels that he has the resources available to him. And this is the one who was leading the demonstration at Columbia. You want to know what kind of spirit is behind this? You've got it right there. And what did Columbia do after he said this and even posted him saying it online? Virtually nothing. It was only after it became public and was exposed in the media, after the demonstrations, only then that Columbia suddenly decided that they couldn't have him on campus anymore, only because they were exposed. But you know what was exposed? This exposes the total bankruptcy of Wokism. Diversity, inclusion, tolerance, equity. Apparently not when you're a Jew, not when you're an Israeli. They'll talk about microaggressions. If you do anything, say anything that could offend somebody's sensibility in any way, if you use the wrong terminology, the wrong pronoun, if it offends Wokism, that's a big crime. But if you're a Jew or an Israeli, it's okay to call for your death or to allow calls for your death. We're good with that. In fact, we can celebrate murder. How bankrupt can you get when you can rejoice over the rape, torture, and mutilation of innocent Israeli fathers, mothers, and children? Do you know what all the woke and left-wing activists said in the wake of Hamas's slaughter of innocent Israeli families? Nothing. Do you know what all the woke left-wing radical feminist women's rights groups said about the brutal sexual abuse, rape, and murder of Israeli women? Nothing. Do you know what all the woke and left-wing children's rights organizations said about all the Israeli children who were tortured, murdered, beheaded, and burned? Nothing. And when they slaughtered all those families and all those young people at that concert, where were all the young people and faculty and professors of the young people at Harvard and Yale and Columbia and all the other institutions? Did they demonstrate about it? No. Did they show their support? No. Did they even mention it? No. Instead, they shouted their support for Hamas, the murderers who did it. And do you know what the United Nations said in view of the atrocities? Virtually nothing. These groups could hardly find a word of criticism for Hamas until they were forced to. But they jumped at condemning Israel. This is not normal, and it's not natural. Something else is going on. The Bible says, woe to you who call evil good and good evil. And the truth is, it's not just that the colleges have allowed this and only don't allow it when they're exposed on the web or by Senate committees. The truth is, they're behind it because they set it in motion. Because this is the gospel of wokeness. This is what they're teaching the students. That Western civilization is evil, that Christianity is evil, that America is evil, that men are evil, that male and female as a reality is evil. And you're going to send your children to these organizations and pay them your fortunes to indoctrinate them into their own image and undo everything you've spent years teaching them to do, Christians, conservatives. If anything, this has exposed the utter bankruptcy of wokeism, the utter amorality of it. So much for safe spaces and so much for microaggressions for sensitivity, so much for inclusivity. Leave it to the issue of Israel and the Jew to expose the golden calf that's been erected for this generation. The idol has feet of clay. Wokism rails against what they call white colonialism or privilege, which is a rebranded form of Marxist ideology. There's not a lot of white colonialism these days, so what do they target? Of all nations, they target Israel. They call Israel a colonial power. It's amazing. If any people have been the victims of colonial powers or empires longer than any other people, it's the Jewish people. It's Israel. From the Egyptian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Islamic empires, the Spanish Empire, the Russian Empire, and on and on and on. The actual truth is, Israel was part of the end of colonialism, as in the British Empire when it withdrew from the Middle East. So here in the halls of wokedom, they deify victimhood. They say that they're for the victim. And whom do they choose to attack? The Jew. The greatest victim, the greatest oppressed, persecuted, slaughtered people in the history of this planet. They picked the one nation of all nations that came into existence for the purpose of protecting its people from annihilation that rose up out of the ashes of the Holocaust. Those are the geniuses of wokeness. Now, we need to pray for all people, love all people, and also at the same time oppose evil. One innocent life lost is a tragedy from any people, and we're not to rejoice over it. The tragedy is when all the Israeli villagers and young people and families were killed. The Gaza Strip and the West Bank was filled with celebrations over their murders. The tragedy is that the majority of people in Gaza approved of what Hamas did to the Israeli families. And after all this, they were still in favor of Hamas ruling. Hamas has destroyed Gaza as well as everything else. They've robbed it of its food supplies, of its humanitarian aid. It's a sickness, it's a darkness that is destroying the Palestinians. Hamas has been a key part of that. The Israelis don't want war, they hate it. They want peace, but they're the only nation in the world that's not allowed to protect itself against a terrorist organization that is bent on its destruction. Imagine if this happened to America. Well, it did. It was called 9/11. It led us to engage not in one war, but two wars. And in just one of them, the numbers of civilian deaths is estimated to be over 100,000 people. We fought in the Second World War. It's considered the most moral of wars against Hitler. In that war, how many civilians died? The number is estimated at 38 million. But compared to its population, what happened to Israel would be as if in America, terrorists living on our borders invaded America, went into thousands of American homes, tortured, raped, mutilated, burned, and slaughtered 44,000 Americans, fathers, mothers, children, and babies. What do you think we would do? Would we leave any chance for this to happen again? And Hamas uses the people of Gaza as their human shields. They use hospital schools to put children and the sick in front of them. And wars are messy, but this is the most challenging for Israel because it's happening with human shields. And yet, unlike almost every other nation or army in the world, Israel told the people of Gaza to move south out of harm's way before they began the operation against the terrorists of Hamas. Hamas, on the other hand, specifically targeted civilians. That was their purpose, to brutally murder the nearby Israeli villagers. It's as if there's a serial killer going around killing men, women, and children, and the police come after him to stop him. And in the shootout, there are other casualties. And the geniuses at our universities rail against the police and hail the serial murderer as their hero. They say, "I am the serial killer," as in, I am Hamas. Israel sought to get the civilians out of harm's way. Hamas specifically invaded the homes of civilians and tortured and mutilated them. And in the halls of academia, students and professors are glorifying Hamas, the serial murderers, and warring against the people of those victims. They rail against those who do not pronounce the pronoun they demand, as in aggressive act, they'll call it, but the murder of children they will champion. And these same people, like the leader of the Columbia demonstrations who said Zionists, people who believe that Jewish people have the right to return to their homeland, do not deserve to live. In the same video, he put up his pronouns. He said it's he, she, or they. At the same time, at one of the drag queen storybook hours, the drag queen led all the little children in chanting "Free Palestine." So this is an experiment to those people. Go to Gaza, go to Hamas, do your thing, and see if they will honor your pronouns. I don't think they will. But you know what they will do? They'll take you to a rooftop and push you off to your death. And that's what you're advocating for. You're advocating for those who would murder you. You know, there's a word that sums up many of these at these universities. It's the word sophomore. It speaks of a second-year college student. It comes from the Greek. Sophos means wise, and moros means fool. So it means a wise fool, somebody who thinks that they're wise but they're a fool. Well, there's actually a Bible verse that has both of those Greek words within it. It's Romans 1:22. It says this: professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. And the context is, this is what happens to those who turn away from the knowledge of God. They become fools. Does this have anything to do with the end times? It totally does. First, the Bible says that in the end times, Israel, there'll be an Israel back in the world. So after 2,000 years of being gone, just as the Bible said, against all odds, Israel is back. Second, it says that the world in the end times will be focused on Israel against all odds. And so it has again. Third, the world will see Israel as the center of controversy. Well, it does. Fourth, Israel will be attacked. It is being attacked again and again and again. Physically attacked by Hamas, by Iran, just in the last few months in the Middle East. And you who attack it on your campus, guess what? You're part of biblical prophecy. Now listen to this from the book of Revelation. I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouths of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast and the false prophet. They are spirits of demons performing signs which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Who is the dragon? The enemy. Who is the beast? The Antichrist. The spirits that come out of them go out to the leaders of the earth, the world, and they cause the world to come to Armageddon, to come against the tiny nation of Israel. The spirits are demonic. They don't make sense. They're not just. They're not fair. They're not rational. They hate and they want destruction. More than anything, they want to destroy the Jewish people. They want to destroy the nation of Israel. Why? Very simple. God said that the Jewish people, the children of Israel, are put on earth as witnesses that He is, that He exists, that His promises are true. And it is through them that came the Word of God, the light of God, the Messiah, the gospel. And it will be through them again that the Messiah will come again. And that is why the colleges of America are raging against Israel and the Jews. That's why cities all over the world are raging against Israel and the Jews. It's not natural. It's not rational. It's spiritual. And only the Bible explains it. The Bible says that at the end of the age, all nations will come against Israel. Unfortunately, that word all includes America. Why is this happening? What's happening significant and prophetic? Because it's happening primarily in America, Israel's closest ally. If that happens here, what will be left for Israel? It's happening among the young. The young represent the future. Young Americans represent the future of America. Do you know that when they did polls of young Americans, they found out that virtually a majority of them, young Americans, were in favor of Hamas? Do you know that virtually a majority of young Americans believe that what Hamas did to the Israeli families and youth on October 7th was justified? This is your brave new world. This is the future we are nurturing. And college campuses, that's even more the future. These are the ones who will be running American society and government. There are historians who are saying that this is reminiscent of what happened in Germany. Do you know where much of Hitler's support came from? The young. The college campuses. They were filled with anti-Semitism. And now for the first time since Hitler, it's happening in the West on American campuses. And so when you read the prophecies of the Bible that speak of all nations coming against Israel, hating Israel, you've been warned. Armageddon is already there in the one who says Zionists or Israel or Jews have no right to live. That's how you get Armageddon. It's the foreshadow of the frogs of Revelation, and it's filling our world. And we would expect, as foretold in end-time prophecy, in the last days the world will hate Israel and will hate believers in Israel's Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus. We're here. Now I'm going to tell you a secret, more than one, that CNN will never tell you. In all these demonstrations, they venerate Hamas. That chant, "We are Hamas, I am Hamas." I'm going to tell you a secret behind it all that they will never say. You see, there's something more going on behind it all. Behind the issue of the Palestinian agenda, behind Gaza, behind Hamas. Mohammed Amin al-Husseini was born at the end of the 19th century in Ottoman-controlled Jerusalem. In the First World War, he fought in the Ottoman army. After the war, he returned to Jerusalem and focused on derailing all movements towards the birth of a Jewish nation in the land. His inflammatory speeches incited violent Arab riots, leaving several Jewish people dead. In 1921, he assumed the title of Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. In the years that followed, he would play a central part in instigating violent Arab uprisings against the Jews of the Middle East, of the land of Israel, resulting in their blood. Because of this, a warrant was issued for his arrest, but he escaped prosecution. He fled to Lebanon, then Iraq, and then he went to Nazi Germany. The Mufti was a fan of Adolf Hitler. Soon after Hitler rose to power in Germany, the Mufti expressed his support for the new government. He said that the Palestinian Muslims were enthusiastic supporters of the Nazi regime. He looked forward to the spread of fascism throughout the Middle East. And he was especially a fan of the Nazis' anti-Jewish campaigns. He appealed to Hitler to rid Palestine of Jewish settlements. In 1940, the Mufti drafted a document he hoped the Nazi government would approve, in which the Arab countries would be given the right to, quote, solve the Jewish issue in their lands as the Nazis had solved it in Germany. In November of 1941, the Mufti obtained a meeting with Adolf Hitler in the Reich Chancellery in Berlin. He told Hitler that the Arabs were his natural allies, as they had the same enemies, most specifically the Jews. He asked Hitler to commit to the elimination of a national Jewish homeland, what would become Israel. Hitler affirmed his commitment. He said yes to destroying the Jewish element residing in the Arab sphere at the right time. The Holocaust was to be taken to the land of Israel. In July 1942, the Mufti visited a Nazi concentration camp, and he was impressed by what he saw. Throughout the Holocaust, the Mufti actually worked to block the routes of Jewish people trying to escape the Holocaust. He was personally responsible for preventing the escape of 500 Jewish children, consigning them to their deaths in a Nazi concentration camp. He would be accused of condemning 400,000 Jewish people to extermination. During the war, the Mufti actually worked for the Third Reich, broadcasting Nazi propaganda throughout the Arab world. The Nazis, in turn, took up the task of distributing his writings, including a pamphlet he wrote for the SS, where he called for the total destruction of the Jewish people. He implored his Nazi employers to bomb Tel Aviv and Jerusalem in order to kill the Jews there. He worked with Heinrich Himmler, the overseer of the Holocaust, to organize Muslim SS killing squads. He publicly exhorted the Muslim world to follow the example of the Nazis in a definitive solution to the, quote, Jewish problem. Near the end of the war, the Mufti broadcast from Radio Berlin. He said, "Arabs, kill the Jews wherever you find them." After the war, the Mufti was identified as a war criminal. He again escaped. He fled to Egypt, where he was welcomed as a hero. During his time with the Nazis, his popularity among the Arabs only increased. He resumed his leadership in the Arab world, and he worked with the Muslim Brotherhood. When Israel was about to be reborn in 1948, and when it was, the Mufti fought to destroy it. Through the Mufti, the demonic anti-Semitism of Nazism merged with Arab nationalism and radical Islamic ideology. The demonic Nazi hatred of the Jews spread throughout the radical Arabic and Islamic world, a hatred that sought their extermination. The Mufti was not just a major leader in the Arab world, he was the leader of the Palestinian world. He has been called the father of Palestinian nationalism. He was central in birthing the Palestinian movement against Israel. So there's a direct line from the meetings of the early Nazi Party in Munich to what happened to Israel on October 7th when Hamas invaded it. And even though Hitler didn't survive the war, the Mufti continued his work in the Middle East. One prominent Muslim leader at the time said, "Germany and Hitler are gone, but al-Husseini, the Mufti, will continue the struggle." Now think about that. Nazism is opposed to radical Islam, and Islam to Nazism. One is secular, the other is religious. And yet they were joined together. Why? Because behind them was something spiritual. They shared the same overriding goal, which was the destruction of the Jewish people. So listen, this is what the media will never tell you. The father of Palestinian nationalism, the Palestinian movement, was an agent of Nazism. He was an actual paid employee working for Adolf Hitler, his boss. See, there's something deeper behind the movement of Palestinian nationalism, something of the spiritual realm. Let's go further. 1946, the year after the Holocaust's end, when the Mufti flees to Egypt, he meets an Arab teenager attending a secondary school in Cairo. He takes that teenager under his wing and recruits him to his cause. The youth becomes his disciple. His name? Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat, the most famous leader of the Palestinian agenda. The Mufti indoctrinated him and his associates into his hatred of the Jewish people and his ideology of exterminating them. Arafat was discipled and indoctrinated by a man who worked for Adolf Hitler and worked with Adolf Hitler. And the torch of the Mufti would pass to Arafat. Arafat would become the leader of Palestinian nationalism. It is no accident that he was also the leader of Palestinian terrorism. It was all the same goal. In order to train Arafat to wage war against the Jews of Israel, the Mufti secretly brought in a former Nazi commando to Egypt. The Nazi commando taught Arafat and his comrades how to launch attacks against Jewish people in Israel, how to wage guerrilla warfare, how to shed Jewish blood. The Nazis were good at that. Arafat himself would then recruit Nazi instructors into the Palestinian agenda, including those who worked in the Nazi death machine. This is the cause that is being hailed and celebrated throughout the campuses of America. Now we move to one other person. The media will never tell you about this one. His name was Hassan al-Banna. Banna was born in 1906 in a rural Nile Delta town near Cairo. When he reached adulthood, he became an elementary school teacher. Disturbed over the abandonment of Islamic beliefs in Egyptian culture, he preached a return to the Quran. In March 1928, he founded an organization dedicated to Islam and jihad, the struggle or fight against the enemies of the faith. The organization would be called the Muslim Brotherhood. 10 years later, the Brotherhood had branches in every province of Egypt. 10 years after that, it had 500,000 active members and many more sympathizers. The Brotherhood was born just as Nazism was coming to power in Germany, or rising to power. Like the Mufti, al-Banna was an enthusiastic fan of Adolf Hitler. He especially admired the Führer's hatred of the Jewish people. He wrote to Hitler repeatedly to express his admiration and his hope that Islam and Nazism would become collaborators. Every year from 1935 onward, the Brotherhood would send delegations to attend the Nazi Party's annual rallies in Nuremberg. The Brotherhood would translate Hitler's autobiography and rantings against the Jewish people into Arabic. It was called Mein Kampf. They translated it as Jihadi, or My Jihad. So the darkness goes from Mein Kampf to My Jihad, and it became one of the best-selling books in the Arab world, the autobiography of Hitler. The Brotherhood took the fighting against the Jewish people into the Middle East. 1938, it led demonstrations against the Jews of Egypt. The next year, it bombed a synagogue in Cairo, ransacked Jewish homes in the city. They were doing what the Nazis were doing in Germany. They ransacked Jewish homes, burned synagogues to the ground at Kristallnacht. The collaboration between the Nazis and the Muslim Brotherhood went even deeper. Beginning in the 1930s, Hitler actually financed the Muslim Brotherhood. Brotherhood members in turn functioned as Middle Eastern agents, Nazi agents and spies for Germany. Its members fought for Hitler as members of Nazi troops, including the two specially formed SS divisions. The Nazis also helped the Muslim Brotherhood in its organizing, its propaganda, and its waging of war. Now, al-Banna was not only an admirer of Hitler, he was an admirer of the Mufti. The two became partners in their war against the Jews. Through the Muslim Brotherhood and the Mufti, Nazi anti-Semitism spread through the Arab world, became a central pillar of radical Islamic thought and ideology. Accordingly, Jews were now to be viewed as evil by nature. They were now depicted as the incarnation of evil, its chief wellspring in the modern world. The Jews had come to Israel, according to this belief, to implement their plot of world domination. Their very existence constituted an existential threat. The Muslim Brotherhood could not negotiate with them. They couldn't live with them or make peace with them. The only thing they could do was destroy them, exterminate them. So behind the radical Islamic ideology, the radical Islamic preaching, was the voice of Adolf Hitler. The Mufti became the Brotherhood's representative in the land of Israel. He was central in bringing the Brotherhood into Israel. This is going to turn out to be real critical for our time. When Israel was reborn, the troops of the Muslim Brotherhood entered the land to destroy the Jewish nation. So did the Mufti and his young disciple Yasser Arafat. The Mufti's prime headquarters in Israel was the city of Gaza. And through him, the Muslim Brotherhood had an effect there. The Brotherhood would give birth to a child. The child would be born in Gaza. It would be called the Islamic Resistance Movement, or in Arabic, Harakat al-Mukawama al-Aslamiyah. The name was shortened into an acronym. The Brotherhood's child was given the name Hamas. This is the origin of Hamas. This is where it springs from. You can find the Muslim Brotherhood also behind Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, September 11th, and countless other evils. Hamas was born in Gaza on December 10th, 1987. Why did it come into existence? It's all there in its founding charter. Listen to what it says. This is the actual charter that began Hamas. It says, quoting from al-Banna, Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it. In other words, Hamas exists to annihilate Israel. And this is what they're hailing as heroes on American campuses. And they'll say it's not anti-Semitism. No, it actually is. The charter of Hamas goes on. For our struggle against the Jews is extremely wide-ranging and grave. Our struggle against the Jews. In German, the words, our struggle or my struggle is Mein Kampf. They're using Hitler's words. Article 22 of Hamas's charter could have been written by Hitler himself. It says the Jews took control of the world media, news agencies, the press, publishing houses, broadcasting stations, others with their money. They stirred revolutions in various parts of the world. They were behind the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution, most revolutions with their money. They formed secret societies such as Freemasons, Rotary Clubs, the Lions, for the purpose of sabotaging societies and achieving Zionist interests. There's no war going on anywhere without having their finger in it. This is classic anti-Semitism, and Hitler is all over it. The charter goes on, in Hitler's words, the Jews aim at undermining societies, destroying values, corrupting consciences, deteriorating character, Israel, Judaism, and Jews. Israel is evil, according to this. Jews are evil, and so is Judaism. Hamas's charter makes it clear they will never make any peace with the Jewish people, even in the next life. They say to the Jewish people of Israel, you shall be overcome and thrown together into hell. This is the only way to liberate Palestine. And this is what they're hailing on American campuses, chanting, we are Hamas. Well, let's see what Hamas is chanting. It's actually there in their charter. It's in their vow. Listen, it says this: I will assault and kill. Assault and kill. Assault and kill. I didn't repeat that. That's exactly what the charter says 3 times. I will assault and kill. It sounds like the mantra of somebody who is satanically possessed, and with good reason. Without Hitler, that charter could never be written. They are both part of the same evil. The hatred of the Jewish people is central to their worldview. You can't negotiate with it because it's the foundation of their existence, to annihilate Israel and the Jewish people. You can't negotiate with it any more than you can negotiate with a demonic spirit, which is basically what you're dealing with. And they chant in the universities, "Long live Hamas forever." Now another mystery. Hamas is an Arabic acronym about Islamic resistance. But the amazing thing is, it's also a Hebrew word. And it's a Hebrew word that actually appears in the Bible. With that in mind, listen to what the Bible actually says about Hamas. The word from the Psalms. "Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from men of Hamas." And from Ezekiel, "Hamas has risen up into a rod of wickedness." And this also, "For the land is filled with crimes of blood, and the city is full of Hamas." And here's a command from the Bible: "Put away Hamas." Or it can be translated, "Put an end to Hamas." Do you know what Hamas means in Hebrew, in the Bible? It means evil, violence, and destruction. So when they chant on American campuses, "Long live Hamas," in Hebrew, in the language of the Bible, they are chanting, "Long live violence. Long live destruction." And when they chant, "We are Hamas," in the language of the Bible, they are chanting, "We are evil. Long live evil. We are evil." They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're saying. They are pawns. They have become pawns of evil. The Palestinians have largely also become pawns of dark agents, vessels of terror, pawns of Hamas, pawns of violence, pawns of destruction, pawns of evil. But Hamas didn't begin it. Hamas came from the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood and the Mufti were following the lead of Adolf Hitler. So the evil is deeper and older. And Hitler and the Nazis were also pawns of something even deeper and older. Everything we are seeing now is just the latest manifesting of an ancient war and ancient evil, the longest of wars against any people. It defies human explanation because it's not human. 2,000 years ago, it was written in the book of Revelation. Listen. "Now when the dragon saw that he'd been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child." Who's the woman? She wears a crown of 12 stars, the 12 tribes of Israel. She gives birth to the male child who will rule, Messiah. It can only be Israel, the Jewish nation. And the dragon? Well, the dragon is the enemy. Ha-Satan in Hebrew, Satan. The dragon persecutes the woman. The enemy persecutes Israel, the Jewish people. And verse 17, it says, "And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring." Its ultimate fulfillment is yet to come, but it reveals the war that is already in progress. We are witnessing the latest manifestation of that war. It's a war that spans ages. It was waged by the pharaohs of Egypt, the rulers of Babylon, the emperors of Rome, the kings of the Middle Ages, the czars of Russia, the leaders of Nazi Germany, the leaders of Hamas, and even by those in our own land. They are also pawns, and behind it all is the dragon. In the last days, the dragon will wage war against the children of Israel. So he's warring now. The same one who wars against Israel will also war against the spiritual children of Israel. That's you, the believer, the follower of Messiah, a Christian. If he wars against the one, he's going to war against the other. So every follower of Messiah, Yeshua, the Messiah of Israel, must pray and uphold the children of Israel. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And we have to pray for everyone. We have to pray for those who are deceived, for those who are pawns of the game, for the children of Ishmael, for those under the spell of Hamas, of violence, evil, and destruction. The only answer to Israel's anguish is the Messiah of Israel. When Messiah comes, Yeshua, when he comes, all the anti-Semites of the world and all who shout for Israel's destruction will bow their knees before the King of Israel. In that day, there will be no more Hezbollah, no more Hamas, no more violence, no more evil, no more destruction, as it is written in Isaiah. And Hamas shall no longer be heard in your land. No more evil, no more tears, no more sorrow. And the rage of the dragon, the evil of the dragon shall be no more, because the Lion of the tribe of Judah will have vanquished him. Be of good courage, because what we have seen, the Bible foretold. And that tells you that your God is still on the throne, and he's not getting off of it. That means you're on the winning side. And the only answer for Israel, for America, for the world remains Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, the light of the world, the only hope, the only one. If you do not now know him, if you are not now following him, and if you are not yet born again, saved, a child of God, you know you're going to heaven, ask him to come into your heart, into your life, that you might be born again, and begin to follow him with all your heart, and he'll lead you, and he'll save you, just as he will save his ancient people Israel on that day. Now, you may have guessed, but everything that's happening is just part of a gigantic mystery, which is going to be revealed in the dragon's prophecy. Now, it lies behind what was, what is now, and what is yet to come, and it's going to affect your life. You can actually be the first to receive it. Secure your copy. Just go to Amazon or wherever you get books online. Type in the dragon's prophecy. And if you haven't already, to not miss these prophetic messages and postings, hit subscribe and like. And to get free gifts, mysteries, and much more, go to hopeoftheworld.org, and you can actually be part of God's end-time purposes. Until next time, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, and he will be strong for you. This is Jonathan Cahn. Shalom. Hi, I'm Jonathan Cahn, and I hope you were blessed with the video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Feel free to share your reactions with your comments and how you were blessed, and share this video with your friends. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.